I believe it's one public meeting tonight, and then a very thin regular agenda. So I just want to mention that we did receive regrets from Councillor Osanek. She had another obligation tonight, but we're good to go. I will read the public notice, public meeting introduction, notice of collection. Personal information collected as a result of this public hearing and on the forms provided at the back of the room is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes, which will be available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning and Development. The purpose of public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. Following presentations by the applicant, committee members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or further information. The meeting will then be open to the public for comments and questions. Interested persons are requested to give their name and address for recording in the minutes. There is also a sign-in sheet for interested members of the public at the back of the room. No decisions are made at public meetings concerning applications unless otherwise noted. The public meeting is held to gather public opinion. An exception to this rule is combined reports, which consolidates the public meeting and comprehensive reports. These applications are deemed by staff as straightforward and routine. This business practice has been in place for a number of years and is received by the applicants as efficient customer service and effective use of committee time. Please note that staff use discretion in determining if an application can be a combined public meeting comprehensive report to expedite the approval process. Public meeting reports are provided to inform the public of all relevant information. Information gathered is then referred back to planning and development staff for the preparation of a comprehensive report and recommendation to planning committee. This means that after the meeting tonight, staff will be considering the comments made by the public in their further review of the applications. When this review is completed, a report will be prepared making a recommendation for action to this committee. The recommendation is typically to approve with conditions or to deny. This committee then makes a recommendation on the applications to City Council. City Council has the final say on the applications from the city's perspective. Following council decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston to the local planning appeal tribunal, but that person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Kingston before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. So tonight, we have a zoning bylaw amendment request for 677, 691 Gardner's Road. So whoever wishes to make the presentation, there you go.
Good evening, my name is Miles Weeks. I'm a land use planner with Foten Consultants, and I'll be presenting the zoning bylaw amendment application for 685 Gardner's Road tonight. So the subject site is located on the west side of Gardner's Road. The surrounding area contains arterial commercial uses as well as some light and general industrial uses. The RioCan Center is located directly across the road from the site to the east, and there are a variety of industrial uses located to the west or the rear of the site. The site itself is 4.5 hectares in area, and it has approximately 182 meters of frontage along Gardiner's Road. There are 4 driveway entrances accessing the site along Gardiner's Road. One of those 4 driveways is located at a signalized intersection. There are 5 buildings, existing buildings located on the site, and they contain a variety of uses, including an auto service shop, a retail plaza, a vehicle sales establishment, and a warehouse. The businesses operating there are Hakim Optical, Speedy Auto Service, and a vehicle sales business called Autos Unlimited. The southern third of the site remains largely vacant. So in this image, we're looking from the south end of the site along Gardiner's Road towards the subject property. You can see clearly the existing vehicle sales establishment. Here we have an image of the signalized intersection accessing the site. And this is an image from the north end of the site where you can clearly see the Speedy Auto Service, the Hakim Optical, and the Autos Unlimited office space. This is the site plan for the proposed development. You can see the 5 existing buildings outlined here, as well as the proposed parking configuration for the site. The intent of the application is to renovate and revitalize the site with additional compatible uses. There are no changes proposed to the footprint of the existing building. All the physical changes will be interior to the buildings and really to just enable the proposed uses today. So those new uses will be an auto body shop and a workshop located in the large warehouse building, the L-shaped building you see there. The body shop will be in the portion that is yellow, whereas the workshop will be in the red portion of the building. It's also proposed to establish a vehicle storage area in the rear of the site. And there will be 132 parking spaces along with 6 accessible spaces. In addition to those spaces, there will be another 262 vehicle display spaces. Those are for the benefit of the vehicle sales business. This is a southern elevation of that warehouse building that will contain the body shop as well as the southern facade of the vehicle sales office building. So the official plan designates the site, it's actually dual designated. So the rear portion of the site is general industrial, while the majority of the site is designated arterial commercial. The arterial commercial designation permits a variety of arterial commercial uses that require large sites on major roads. Permitted uses include vehicle sales, automotive-related services, and outdoor display areas. The current zoning for the site is a special general C251 zone. This permits a limited variety of residential uses as well as a wide range of non-residential uses. The maximum leasable floor area for the site is 10,000 square meters. The maximum building height is 24.3 meters, and a minimum 6-meter landscape buffer is required between any residential use on the site that abuts an industrial zone. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would rezone the site from the C251 zone to a C276 zone. The proposed amendment will expand the list of permitted non-residential uses to include the workshop and body shop that I mentioned before. It'll also establish a variety of site-specific performance standards, which will reflect the existing and proposed configuration of the lot. So these amendments would apply to the interior side yard width, the parking location, the parking aisle width, and the driveway location. Additional provisions have been included to restrict the location of the proposed body shop and accessory vehicle storage areas. The provisions of the zoning would also apply to the entirety of the site, or rather to the zone, so that any future severance of the land would not impact the zoning. So in summary, this proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and consistent with the general intent of the official plan in that it's an automobile oriented use located on a large or major arterial road. The proposed uses are compatible with the surrounding area, and the quasi-industrial uses, namely the proposed body shop, it will be located towards the rear of the site and adjacent to designated industrial lands. That's all for my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Great, thank you very much. Planners, I believe, have a statement to make about circulation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to the Planning Act, a notice of the statutory public meeting was provided by advertisement in the form of signs posted on the subject property 20 days in advance of the public meeting. In addition, notices were sent by mail to all 21 property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. A courtesy notice was also placed in the Whig Standard on April 30th, 2019. Presently, the Planning Division has not received any correspondence from the public regarding this application. Thank you.
I'll turn to the committee. Questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you, Aaron. Through you. I have one about one of the reliefs requested, and it's pertaining to the separation between the parking area and the street line. I'm wondering if you could point out where that's going to happen or where it might happen.
Yes. So, I realize this is fairly small, through you, Mr. Chair. But in the bottom right corner of the site plan there, you'll notice that the parking comes right up to the property line. And that's really just the existing situation today. The parking is already there, and so this zoning provision would essentially recognize the existing layout of the site.
So it wouldn't take away the grass between the sidewalk and the current parking lot?
Through you, Mr. Chair. If we look at the image here, you can see there is a small grassy strip. This corner here is the location where the parking abuts the property line. So that grass, I believe, is technically in the public right-of-way, but it's still there, and it's similar to elsewhere along Gardner's Road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, if you would, I've got.
Yeah, take the chair.
Curious, will any of the existing businesses be displaced with this proposal? And will any of them be going through any kind of revitalization or renewal along the streetscape?
Through you, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that no, none of the existing businesses will be displaced. Currently, the building containing the Hakim Optical is not fully occupied, so part of this project is really to bring this site to a more, I guess, complete state. It's to renovate everything to make it more whole, and so none of the businesses will be displaced.
And I was just scrolling madly through the list, looking at your proposal. I don't believe you're asking for any variances. Is that correct, or did I miss something? So no relief is required with this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There are a number of amendments to the zoning bylaw that we're proposing.
I just found them.
Okay. So yes, I'm happy to discuss them again, or it'll mainly be towards the interior side yard, and that's for the Speedy Auto building. It's an existing building. It's just to recognize that it's already there and that existing side yard width. Same goes for the parking we had mentioned before, and then there are a variety of others. There's separation of driveways from intersections. One of these driveways intersects with an intersection, so we're amending that to allow one driveway to intersect. Yeah.
Thank you.
I yield the chair to you.
Councillor Hutchison.
This may be the question, so correct me. The last line in one of the descriptions given is reduce required separation distance from driveways on the subject property to the nearest intersection. Can you show us that up there, please, and point to it?
So through you, Mr. Chair, effectively that provision requires, I believe it it's 50 meters perhaps, setback between a driveway and an intersection, and usually that's to ensure that traffic flow doesn't get clogged and things continue to run smoothly. In this instance, the intersection and the driveway are one and the same. It's almost the effect that a road would have, and it's an existing situation, so we're just recognizing that in this particular instance, there is one driveway that inherently requires that 50 meters be reduced to allow that driveway to continue to function.
And that's already existing, is it?
That's exactly what we're looking at here. That's the signalized intersection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll now open it up to the public, and public have 5 minutes for questions or comments. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the presentation. I'm fully supportive of the proposed project. Just have a couple of questions. It's related both around the same theme. Snow removal and stormwater on the site. Maybe I wasn't looking in at the right spot. I didn't really see anything in terms of how that's going to be attained. You've got a large number of parking spots and a very large paved area, right? The land looks like it's fairly level. I've not been in that area myself, but I've been in RioCan Center and businesses around there, right? So I'm just wondering, you might be able to explain more about how that's going to be attained. If you have any drainage installed through drains or culverts taking that water away, and if you have all those cars parked there and you get a big storm, you're going to have to find a way of dealing with that. I guess with, say, large grocery stores, for example, they'll plow their lots, right? So I'm just wondering if you thought about that, and thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further public, I believe that's the end of the questions. If you'd care to address that, that would be great.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your comments. And with regards to snow removal, it's a large lot. There's more than enough space for snow storage. I would imagine that plowing could be done to push the snow towards the rear of the site, which is currently vacant. As for stormwater management plan has been created. The details of that plan I would have to reference, but I know it involves drainage towards the rear of the site where there will be an oil grit separator to ensure that any pollutants from the large number of vehicles on the site will be removed before entering the soil.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the committee. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I will declare this public meeting over. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to our regular planning committee meeting. And I'll call this meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hutchison, Councillor Hill. I'm sorry. With the addendum. I'm glad the clerks are always here to jog my memory. Yeah, the addendum has one alteration, and everybody should have a copy of that, and with the revision on the back of that page. And it's for item A. So I'll call the question. Duly moved and seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Confirmation of minutes from Thursday, May 2nd. If somebody could move, thank you. Councillor Kiley moved and Councillor Hutchison seconded. Any revisions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And we'll move on to disclosure of pecuniary interest. Yes.
Robert Kiley of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston, declare my pecuniary interest in the matter of Report A concerning motion on city-owned facilities as I own an adjacent property to 303 York Street.
Thank you much. In doubt, declare. That's always a good rule. So thank you. So with that one disclosure, we'll move on to item A, which is special events in city-owned facilities, Sunnyside Road, Gardner's Road and Young Street, and it's brought to us by this City of Kingston. So the floor is yours.
Hello, good evening. My name is Anne-Marie Eusebio, Intermediate Planner with the Planning Division. This is a proposed zoning bylaw amendments for city-owned recreation facilities for special events. These special events refer to specific day retail sales as well as trade shows. The purpose of this application is to rezone 5 city-owned recreation properties to enable accessory trade shows and specific day retail sales uses at the Cataraqui Community Center, Invista Center, Center 70 Arena, the Kingston Memorial Center, and the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor. We're going to be introducing definitions for these proposed accessory uses, as well as introduce a parking ratio at each site to reflect the anticipated parking demand generated by the noted accessory uses. So this is a parking ratio that's spaces per gross floor area, and it's not a fee at all. It's not a parking rate or fee, just to provide clarity on that. Also, we're proposing to establish a holding H symbol to be applied to the Kingston Rail Centre, subject to Ontario Building Code Compliance Review and sign off by the city's chief building official. In addition, we're permit a retail use within the limits of the existing building that exists at the Center 70 Arena. It should also be noted that there will be no construction or site alteration proposed at any of these city-owned facilities. So as I've mentioned, we are proposing new definitions for each of the proposed site-specific zones. The first is the specific day retail sales, means the use of any lot, building, or structure in which brings together members of the public or an industry for the purpose of selling or buying goods or services, which are complementary to the permitted use. Also introducing a definition of trade shows, which is the use of any lot, building, or structure to bring together members of particular industry to display, demonstrate, or promote their latest products, which are complementary to the principal permitted uses on the property. So why are we doing this? Why is the city wanting to bring forward this proposed zoning bylaw amendments? What is the intent? It's to propose a broader mix of compatible uses to support complete communities, by which our community members have a means to live, work, and play in creating those environments for less reliance on vehicles, on the car, to obtain services, goods, and amenities. It's also to provide clarity and consistency on proposed accessory uses. And it's also to make optimal use of existing public facilities to support the long-term financial viability of the city. So to provide some background, about almost 2 years ago, there was a public meeting that was held on November 2nd. And since then, a technical analysis has been conducted in which we engaged other city departments, which includes the city's building division, as well as the city's traffic division, our partners at the public health unit. We've also retained McIntosh Perry Consultants to prepare a parking study to assess the parking anticipated with the introduction of the specific day retail sales and trade shows. So this is a map showing the location of the city-owned facilities. We have Cataraqui Community Center at the north of the city within the rural area. So this facility is also subject to this application, as well as the Invista Center, located on the west end of the city. Center 70 Arena, located also to the west of the city in the Redendale neighborhood. Also the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor to the south, as well as Kingston Memorial Center to the core of the city. These are just photos of this of the subject properties here. Again, we have the Neighborhood Sharing Center, which is located on the Center 70 property. And just to clarify, we're proposing to enable a retail use on this facility. And these are images of the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor, as well as the, it should say, the Kingston Memorial Center. So the provincial policy statement contains policies supporting the responsible use of public assets and development of complete communities. To stress the policies here, it's to support the financial well-being of municipalities over time, and again, creating active and healthy communities. So we would like to propose trade shows and specific day retail sales to better utilize our existing facilities and to promote the optimal uses of these facilities as well. Also, with respect to active communities, these are facilities, 4 of them actually in the urban area, do have access to transit as well, and also promotes community connectivity. The provincial policy statement also speaks to the use of existing infrastructure and community hubs, and it's again providing those connections with using existing facilities, having a broader mix of uses within these facilities also promotes diverse uses available to members of the public, and promoting cost-effective service integration. This is a map of our official plan. So the Invista Center, with respect to the designation, it is designated a business park and general industrial. The Center 70 Arena is a designated open space, as well as the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor and the Kingston Memorial Center. The Cataraqui Community Center is located within a hamlet. There's also environmental protection area that covers Cloverdale Park, which is also located on the site as well. Our official plan policies speak to sustainable development. So this, the introduction of specific day retail sales and trade shows will be located within the built-up area of the city, as well as the rural area, and again providing a broader mix of uses. With respect to the phasing of growth, creating compact and urban forms of development. Again, it's providing broader mix of uses that would be available to members of our community. With respect to land use compatibility, we have conducted a technical analysis in which we have assessed traffic, servicing, as well as parking, and it was determined that there will be no adverse effects with respect to this proposal. With respect to economic development, these proposed uses will promote some investment opportunities in a compatible and efficient manner. With respect to infrastructure and transportation, the proposal will as part of the technical analysis, there are adequate services with respect to roads and utilities that would be able to accommodate any demand generated by the specific day retail uses and trade shows. The zoning for each of the properties are listed here. The Cataraqui Community Center and the Center 70 are both zoned institutional, so these properties allow for community centers as well as arenas. The Invista Center is located within a site-specific restricted general industrial site-specific MX21 zone, which allows for recreational uses as well as those accessory to that. The Portsmouth Olympic Harbor is located within site-specific general recreation park modified site-specific zone. So this zone is within this zone, educational classes are permitted that are given by university or a college. It also allows for other similar uses within the park and open space zone. And the Kingston Memorial Center is located within a P1 zone, which allows for fairgrounds, amusement parks, as well as community centers and arenas as well. So as I've mentioned, we did conduct a technical analysis with respect to engaging other departments. With respect to the building review, it was found that a holding H symbol would need to apply to the Kingston Memorial Center, subject to an official Ontario Building Code compliance review that should be prepared by a qualified professional. This information needs to be reviewed by our chief building official, and the reason for this is that the building might require upgrades with regards to fire suppression and other building code issues. We also engaged with our traffic division to undertake traffic counts to the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor and also at the Cataraqui Community Center for community-related events. They also looked at the local road network which abuts these facilities to see if the road network would be able to accommodate for the demand for these proposed uses. And so the traffic division has confirmed through the review of the data collected that there are no traffic-related concerns. With respect to servicing, the health unit has reviewed this information. This specifically relates to the Cataraqui Arena, in which 2 holding tanks were installed. We have recently installed monitoring measures to ensure that servicing would be taken care of in terms of the tanks being emptied out prior to reaching capacity. And so the health unit has provided confirmation that the sewage system can function appropriately to support trade shows and specific day retail sales. With respect to the parking study, we have retained Macintosh Perry to conduct counts for recent representative trade shows in Ottawa, Bowmanville, Peterborough, and Kingston. So these were representative events. They include Comic-Con, spring and craft shows. And it was identified that the recommended minimum supply rate is 1 space per 26 square meters of gross floor area to be applied for trade shows and specific day retail sales for each of our 5 facilities. And we have confirmed that the existing supply of parking at each facility would be able to meet the demand anticipated for these proposed accessory uses. It should be noted, though, that a floor cap or a floor area cap is recommended for the Invista Center to ensure that the existing parking is adequate to support the proposed uses. So we've looked at the technical analysis. We've engaged with the building department. We've engaged with the traffic division as well as the public health unit, and we've retained a consultant to provide us with the information, and we have determined that there are no adverse impacts with respect to the land uses. So we're going to present now the proposed zoning for each of the facilities. So for the Cataraqui Community Center, it is located within an institutional zone in zoning bylaw 7626. We are proposing a site-specific institutional zone to include accessory uses for the trade shows and specific day retail sales, and also include the parking as well, which is 1 space for every 26 meters for gross floor area. With respect to the Invista Center, again, this will, it's already located within a site-specific zone. Again, trade shows will be included in accessory uses. And as described earlier, the parking will be 1 space for each 20 square meters to a maximum of 14,600 square meters of gross floor area. With respect to the Center 70 arena, this is currently zoned institutional. We're proposing a site-specific institutional zone, again, to include the accessory uses, 1 space for each 26 meters of gross floor area. And for the 670 Front Road for the retail use for the store, We're going to recognize the retail store within the existing building, recognize the parking for this store at 5.25 parking spaces per 100 square meters, and also recognize the existing deficient rear yard setback of the building. For the Kingston Memorial Center, we're also going to introduce a site-specific zone to include, again, specific to retail sales and for parking, again, at one space for each 26 meters of gross floor area. Also including a holding provision to look at, to ensure that building code compliance is looked at, providing analysis that should be prepared by a qualified professional, and a change of use permit to be issued. With regards to the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor, we're going to also permit the accessory uses, again, to recognize the parking for one space for each 26 meters of gross floor area, and it was also recognized that there is a deficient existing rear yard setback, interior side yard setback of the building. We have received some public comments with respect to this application, and the three are listed here. The first being, why is this only being applied to the city-owned facilities? And again, it's going back to complete communities, having a live, work, play type of environment where we're reducing reliance on the automobile for our community to access goods and services. So it is that, and also recognizing the importance of supporting the financial viability for the long-term uses for these facilities. Can the technical studies be shared? These studies are available on DASH, so any information pertaining to this report, such as the traffic counts, as well as the parking study and the inspection report provided by the Public Health Unit, is available to the public on DASH. And as I've mentioned before, with respect to the holding provision, that is to undertake the Ontario Building Code compliance review to ensure that the building is able to support the proposed accessory uses. In conclusion, we have looked at the potential land use impacts for this proposal and has determined that there are no negative impacts with respect to servicing. The parking supply at each facility is adequate and there are no traffic concerns. This proposal ensures that public assets would be managed in a fiscally responsible manner by creating complete communities and allowing for a broader range of uses at each facility. And the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the policies of the official plan. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn to the committee. Yes, Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you very much. The presentation was quite clear. I do just want to clarify for my own explanation, because I did have a resident ask me about this. I believe you've answered the question at the beginning of your presentation, but there's a notice at the Invista Center I took a photo of, and it's just the wording of the sign that caused some confusion. A new parking rate will be introduced to support the incremental demand. And just to be clear, that is not a parking rate, a fee when there's a special event. It's just ensuring that there is an appropriate number of parking spots to facilitate such an event. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct. The parking, it refers to a parking ratio, so that spaces per square meters, and this zoning bylaw amendment does not seek to have any fees applied to any of the city facilities.
Thank you for the clarification. And just with respect to the Invista, you're putting a cap on it. So if you were to use the service area of having a trade show, I know they had this Comic-Con there, and there's a really great little Darlick last year. Recommend you go check it out. The issue that I want to know is, so we have 2 floors, we have the 4 ice pads, we have the 2 meeting areas. If you were to restrict space, how much space would you be restricting? Would it be like if you had all the ice out, it would be 1 less pad? I'm just wondering what the actual impact would be.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the actual size, the gross floor area of the building itself, including the second floor, is just over 15,000 square meters. So we're restricting it to 14,000 square meters. So I think if you look at removing the redundant space within the building, the electrical rooms, the Zamboni rooms, all that stuff, you could still have trade shows within all 4 ice pads of the building, and I would presume be able to meet the zoning.
Yes, Councillor Hill.
I'm making an assumption that I'm assuming that these sort of provisions also apply to activities like the farmers markets that are happening on the outside of the building. Is that true? Or is this just about the inside of the building?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the farmers markets are actually permitted within the Kingston Memorial Center as fairgrounds, but that is correct. The farmers market would fall into what's called a specific day retail sales, so that is something that we are seeking to introduce to these facilities.
So the holding on the Memorial Center wouldn't impact on the farmers market that's currently in operation there, or would?
Mr. New.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, and just to elaborate on Ms. Eusebio's comment, if the use itself, the accessory use, was outside the building, so maybe it was consuming 10 or 20 parking spaces, you would still need to be able to demonstrate, to be able to get a license, that you have sufficient parking for the use itself. So let's say you had use of the arena running at the same time as having an outdoor farmers market that was consuming 20 spaces. You'd need to be able to provide the parking space required, the parking spaces required for both the arena use and the accessory use as provided for in this work. So the parking supply for both.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yes, you
To
should.
you, Mr. Chair. So I'm looking at then at the Center 70 site, because it's now sort of a 3-use site. Then it would be for the arena, potentially for the farmers market that's operating outside, and it's a park and ride. How does that sort of work together, I guess, in terms of being enough available parking spots? Since it seems like it's right now.
Just maybe refer you through, Mr. Chair, to page 39 of the package, but just as it relates to Center 70, the existing supply of parking is 134 spaces, and the requisite supply, if you were filling the building with these uses, is 104. So there is an oversupply there currently. So again, we would have to look at the size of the accessory use and whether or not the main building was being used concurrent for that use to see if there's enough parking. But on that particular site, I don't foresee any issue, even with the retail store being recognized at the sharing center there.
Thank you. Any further questions? Could I ask, Councillor Hill, could you take the
I'm trying to recognize you.
Thank a couple of questions. And of course, I'm going to focus on the Memorial Center since it's a block away from me. In the past, I know that there's been a concern because the farmers market were going to go in to the building, and then there was a fire marshal inspection, and I didn't notice that we're asking for a fire marshal's report on any of these. Will that be part of the regular technical circulation? I think I'm going to look over my shoulder here.
No, it's okay. Mr. Newman can start, and then I'll jump in if I need to. And we also have our CBO here, Ms. Kapner-Hunt, who can help with building code and maybe some fire code related comments as well.
Great.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So fire was circulated already, and they've been engaged in the discussion, and Ms. Kapner-Hunt has also looked at the adequacy of these uses from a building code and fire suppression perspective.
Great, thank you. And my final question has to do with, and I've had some complaints in the past because when there's a weekend event, quite often, a food truck, sometimes from out of town, will show up on the site. And of course, Saturday, Sunday, we don't have a lot of bylaw enforcement on, but that's created some issues. For instance, with the Rib and Beer Fest, to have a chip wagon pull up just outside the gate isn't really a welcome addition to their event. So I'm just curious, if we don't have a policy yet, it would be really good if we had a policy. I know that food trucks in Kingston or in KFL&A area are inspected by public health, but there are a lot of gypsy food trucks that come in that aren't inspected in that. So do we have a policy, or could we establish a policy specific to these events?
Yep, thank you, and through you. So we do have a policy. Certainly, we have a special events policy if it's something that's being organized by the city. So as part of that process, if there are going to be vendors, they need to be identified through that process, especially food vendors, and they go through the process of making sure that they're licensed, which includes their regulatory health checks as well. Certainly, if there's vendors that are on there that aren't part of the regular system in the city, they would have to also go through the same piece and get a license as well. So with the situation that you're referencing, I know that happened quite recently, and we're also making changes to the process to ensure that where licenses have been obtained, they're going to be posted in the windows so that it just makes it easier for people to have that automatic visual to know that it's gone through the process and been licensed and it is able to be there.
Thank you. That would definitely be welcome. At the trampoline event, there was a huge food truck that pulled right up in front of the front doors of the Memorial Center. So there are definitely some issues there. So thank you. I'm done.
I return the chair.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we will turn to the public and give the public an opportunity to speak. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report and all the preparation for it. Very thorough analysis of each of the 5 facilities that are under consideration. I'm totally in support of this. I live right near the Memorial Center, and it's a hub of activity that goes on frequently. So any more activity there is great in terms of building interest in the community. I think there's enough parking there to be able to handle that. So the questions I have, could you also extend this to Artillery Park and to the new community center that's being built in Kingston East, sort of at maybe some future date? Like, you've got a theme of expanding the uses here, and you're covering most sections of the city, so that's great. So I'm wondering if maybe that could be considered in the future. Just noticing that right now the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor site is under a larger review program. So I'm wondering if any changes that you're making here could be integrated into that. Like, I know there's some discussion about actually just taking that building right down and then putting residential in there and this sort of thing. It's still, many years in the future. But anything that is created now, could that be grandfathered in to what happens on that site in the future, according to how appropriate that would be? I think Councillor Hill got at the point I wanted to make, which is some confusion around a farmer's market that had been held in the parking lot at Center 70, but then I guess it was realized that they didn't actually have a permit for it. So hoping to get this through so that that group could continue to have a farmer's market there this year, right? We're getting into the season, right, for that. I'm wondering if maybe on page 62, you could have a more up-to-date illustration. You got a 2003 illustration there that is really no longer valid because the Royal Kingston Curling Club has been built right next to Center 70. And there's probably a better illustration there just to sort of show the orientation of all the different aspects of the site. And I'll just say this in general for all of the uses that take place at these facilities. I tend to front over them myself. And, being a green person, I think that our waste disposal and recycling functions have a lot of room for improvement, especially when we have, say, large events taking place at these facilities. I'm totally in support of the events going there, and you have more potential to do different things. But I think maybe looking at the idea of an improved overall policy when it comes to just dealing with the, I guess, inevitable products of events that take place on these sites. I live near the M Center, and I see, a lot of waste and so forth taking place there with major events. So I'm just putting that into the pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comments or questions, I'll let you address some of those. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this rezoning is to provide greater clarity. So the comment that was made regarding the farmers market at Center 70, it's not to say that it's not permitted today. It is actually permitted as an accessory use to the community center use of the arena or of the site. Really what we're trying to do here is to make it abundantly clear so we don't end up in differences of interpretation with proponents of these types of uses. So that's one of the objectives. The other is to broaden the types of uses to allow for a more diverse use of public facilities to make best financial use of these sites. We can certainly look at getting a more up-to-date illustration of Center 70, that property, perhaps when the opportunity arises to do so. And then regarding the East End Community Center, I would suggest that the work that was done through this project has demonstrated to the city that these 5 municipal facilities can be used for an array of purposes. And we're going to take the findings of this work and incorporate them into the new zoning bylaw. So I think what we could do is look at a zone category that allows these uses more broadly at municipal facilities. So I think we could look at that in the context of the new zoning bylaw.
Thank you. So we will return to the committee if there's a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hill, Councillor Chappelle. Any questions or comments regarding this? So if I can just make one very quick comment. The member of the public mentioned community hubs. I would strongly recommend, again, knowing how busy the Shannon Park Community Hub is, they, I think, are designed for community neighborhood activities, and they get very, very well used for those. And whereas what you're proposing here, in my mind, are larger shows that and larger events that are coming that are a kind of citywide, not neighborhood focus. So I would strongly suggest that we don't broaden it to include the community hubs as we develop them. So, great. So, I will call the question. Seeing no, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for a very good report. I appreciate it. So we'll move right along to, so must be a hockey game on. Somebody's pushing me to get out of here. There are no motions, notices of motion, other business, seeing none. Correspondence we've received. Date and time of the next meeting, June 6th, and get lots of rest. That's a really big agenda on June 6th. So, and motion to adjourn. Pick anybody. Everybody's hand went up. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.